unnamed, walking towards Warsaw, being guided by the Nazis. Now let's look at Felix. What we notice particularly in this chapter is Felix is really taking responsibility. He's found Zelda, a littler kid than him, and he's taking responsibility to look after her. It's no longer the focus of him finding his parents and his needs. Rather, he's looking towards what Zelda needs. If we have a look here, when Zelda's on his back, he says, "I know why the people look sad. They've been walking for hours and they're tired and hungry and worried about their books and parents, just like us. We probably look sad to them. But I don't tell this to Zelda. When a little kid doesn't even know her parents are dead, you've got to try and keep her spirits up." His focus now is helping her keep her spirits up because the reality of her life is very tragic. One of the things that we really notice about Felix in this chapter is that he's starting to understand things that he ignored before. If we have a look early in this chapter on page 59, he said, "These soldiers are Nazis. This straggling crowd of people are all Jewish book owners, all being transported to the city." So he's still fixated on the fact that the Nazis want to burn books. That's all they want to do. We see on page 60, we hear a scream and Zelda is standing by the haystack and a Nazi soldier is pointing a gun at her. What does Felix do? "Don't shoot," I scream, running over to them. The Nazi soldier must have seen it. He must think we're Jewish book owners. Now, not only does this show that Felix is really caring for Zelda, he runs towards a Nazi soldier with a machine gun, but he's still believing that the Nazis are against Jewish book owners. On page 63, when Felix is walking with Zelda on the road towards the city with all the Jewish people, "I know why the people look sad," he said. "They've been walking for hours, they're tired and hungry and worried about their books." We read this just before, but it still goes to show that the focus that he has is this idea of books and book owners. Then on page 64, he says, "Why would the Nazis make people suffer like this just for the sake of some books?" So we can see that he's beginning to become aware that this doesn't really make sense. "Excuse me," he says to a man walking nearby, "are you a book lover?" The man stares at me as if I'm mad. And we see, right at the end of this chapter, not just because I've made a suffering Jewish man feel upset at the sight of a crazy kid, also because I've got a horrible suspicion I know the answer to this question. Maybe it's not just our books the Nazis hate. Maybe it's us. So Felix has grown and been confronted with some things across the breadth of this chapter, and he's beginning to realise that it's not just book owners, Jewish book owners. It's not just books, Jewish books the Nazis hate. It's Jews. They are anti-Semitic. They have hatred of the Jewish people. As we go through this chapter, if we turn to page 63, we can see, by the end of 62 it says, "By the year 1960, she says, people won't need shoes. They'll have wheels instead of feet. Don't you know anything?" So what we can see here is that Zelda's imagination is beginning to grow. Last night in the haystack when they first went down and she was distraught, nothing would please her at all and she wouldn't use her imagination. So much so that Felix said, "There's nothing worse than an orphan with no imagination." We see that she's starting to get into his stories and using imagination herself. One of these poor Jewish ladies, elderly ladies, collapses on the road. I tell her that the lady is just having a rest, and after we've gone, a farmer will come and take the lady home and she'll live happily on the farm with his family and become very good at milking cows. And in the year 1972, she'll invent a machine that makes milk then automatically and also makes butter. Zelda thinks about this. In 1972, says Zelda, cows will make their own butter. Don't you know anything? So we can see that her sense of humour is beginning to grow as a result of being around Felix.